Level up with the new AAA Commanders MVP membership. Get all the benefits of AAA plus exclusive experiences, discounts, and tickets. Already a AAA member? Upgrade for free or join today at AAA.com/commanders. Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. Also, Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Commanders, and I will be doing the live stream Tuesday night, 7:30 Eastern Time. Therapy Tuesday, but maybe a little bit better of therapy because at least there was something fun to watch Sunday night, even though it was another loss. At least it was a fun game, and at least there was something that you could say, hey, that looked good. They look like a professional football team once again, finally. So there you go, 7:30 Tuesday night. Join us. And then for you gold members, we'll be doing the private Zoom. Going to be doing that Thursday night. We'll shoot for 7:30 Eastern Time Thursday night, so join me there. There you go. So today it's a AAA review, the second thoughts on based off of a lot of things, just like talking to Dan Quinn today in our press in the conference call, and then also being able to rewatch some of the game because these night games are a killer, folks. So this is not a complaint, but just why it can be hard to get through this stuff because like after a night game, I'm at the stadium till about 3 o'clock or so. And then, you don't get to bed until a lot later. And so you only get a couple hours sleep. Then I got to write something more and you got conference calls. So sometimes it's hard to get through as much of the film as I want or the game as I want. But I watched something very specific. And today I was watching a lot on like McLaurin, Treylon Burks, some of the offensive line for sure. Defense I'm going to get to later and probably talk about them, my 5 thoughts later in the week. But I do want to talk about a few things that are important and pertain to the Commanders now as far as the future going forward. I'm going to start with there before we get into more of just like the impact of McLaurin and what I saw from Treylon Burks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And some things Dan Quinn talked about. First thing is about Dan Quinn saying that he is open to the possibility of remaining the defensive play caller next season. Ben Standig asked him that during the conference call, one of the last questions that were asked. And I'm glad he asked it because that's something that at some point you want to get to kind of go down that road. It's only been 2 games where he's been the coordinator. So one thing we know is the reason why he became a head coach is because he helped build and develop a very good defense in Seattle. Now, there were some unbelievably talented players, but he also earned a lot of praise for being a coordinator, for play calling, et cetera. That's how he got the Atlanta job. No, in Atlanta, he was not the D coordinator. In Dallas, he was a D coordinator. They were very good there. Here, he wasn't the D coordinator. The defenses have not been good in the year plus that they've been here. So, and they were actually better last year. Now, some of that goes back to who are you facing as at quarterbacks? Because like that typically determines how good those numbers are going to be. That said, this year's group was way worse, even with all that, than it should have been. So that's why he took over the play call in the first place. But I was a little surprised, but pleasantly pleased to hear him say that he would consider it. Now, whether or not that actually happens, I don't know. But I think it shows that he feels pretty good about the process and having people around him that he definitely trusts. One thing that the reason I was a little bit surprised because when he came here, and I've talked about this before, he talked about wanting to delegate more to his assistants and that, giving them more responsibility, but also like not putting too much on his plate because he does a lot. Like he's in there pretty early. He's got a lot, even if as a head coach, you've got a lot going on that you have to deal with. Then you're in charge, you're in other meeting rooms, et cetera. So there's a lot going on that's why he didn't want to take away from that. It's why he didn't want to have to like have front office responsibilities. It's why he wanted to be paired with Adam Peters because he trusts him. So that's why there's a little surprise with that. But this is why he has become a head coach is because of his prowess at calling, designing defenses. So you may as well lean into that, as he said, lean into that space that allows you to have that superpower, whatever, right? So I think like that makes sense. He should consider himself because if the defense finishes strong, you may as well look at that now. How good have they been the last couple of games? They've been better, and they've been certainly appeared to be more disciplined. But I think you have to take there's a couple of things to take into account. One, they haven't played the kind of quarterbacks they did when they were getting destroyed. And, it's a little bit different facing Mahomes, Jared Goff and that offense, the Seahawks, what they're doing right now versus facing Bo Nix or Tua, right? So they're just those offenses are not as good as what they were facing. Dak and that offense is terrific. Again, they could have been a lot better in those games for sure. But that's so, you look at that, say that's part of the equation. I do think also part of the equation is the philosophy, not so much philosophy, what you believe is defense, but what you're asking them to do. They've played, I think it's combined 15 snaps of man coverage the last two games. They were averaging 17 per game in the first 10 weeks. Now, you also had Amos and Lattimore, two guys that you wanted to play press man with. That's not just on Joe Whitt. Like, that's the staff's decision. And that staff included Dan Quinn. Like, they're not going to be running something that Dan Quinn doesn't want them to run. Please keep that in mind. And this is not advocating for Whitt. It's just explaining the situation and adding a little bit of context to it. There is an art to calling plays, even on the defensive side of the ball. And I think Quinn certainly has a good feel for that. But it's, the other on Sunday night, I mean, Denver still, and it's 20 points in regulation, 27 overall. Miami had 13 in regulation, obviously 16 overall. When the defense needed to get a stop the other night, I shouldn't say needed because they got one late in the game, but they didn't. What they didn't do is stop. Washington would get some momentum with the score, take the lead, and then the defense would give it right back up. So that wasn't always pleasing to see, but they have played better, more sound. You can see the attrition that has taken place with the defensive front in particular. There's just not much of a pass rush unless you try to manufacture things. They're not blitzing more. They only blitzed it's 9 times in the 2 games with Quinn because they just, I think it's more about protecting the big plays. Don't give up those big plays. And they have given up some. And sometimes it's because of matchups. Guy just gets beat and then they just don't have that speed and athleticism. I think you want to have that. But again, I go back to the discipline. I think it's, again, asking them, paring down what you're asking them to do. So if there's a particular rule on a certain look, like if they say, okay, in this look, if this guy does this, this is how you respond. But if they do this, this is how you respond. But instead of having multiple options, they boil it down to like 1 or 2, right? To make it because the whole key here is, can you play fast? If you can't play fast, I don't care how complicated, how exotic your defense is. If the guys can't play fast, it doesn't matter. You're not going to be a good defense. So, anyways, but I think all this is why I think Quinn has, I think he's clearly done a good job. Like in the 2 games, they're 14th in points per game. Those 2 games, right? In those 2 weeks, they would rank 14th in points. But I think it's 25th in yards. So it's not like they're just shutting down everything. They weren't great on 3rd down the other night. So there are still holes. But you can also look at that and say, okay, are they doing what they're asked, but they're maybe just not good enough, right? Like that's something you have to evaluate too. I think that helps the evaluation because then you can say, okay, you need to get better players here. But if they're not playing fast, then that's a different story because that speaks to something else. If you're playing fast and you're just not good enough, okay, get somebody else in there, right? Look for better talent in the offseason. So I think that's all part of the equation too. So you want to take all that into account when you're looking at this. But I do think one good thing for them is that he will consider it because, I think I told you, like when Sean McVay went to LA, one of the things he said is like he's not giving up play calling because the reason he was hired was for his play calling. Like you're not going to give that up. That's why they hired you. They didn't hire Dan Quinn because of his play calling here. Like I think if you're coming from Seattle and you're going to Atlanta and doing that, that's a little bit different. But going the way he came here is like to be the head coach. Like he made that clear. This is how the role he sees himself for. But if you can build a staff and maintain a staff that where you trust them and they provide a lot of help, and if Joe Whitt, he feels very comfortable with Whitt, the way they help, the way they work together because of how they worked in Dallas, that's not a bad thing either. So now I don't know what Whitt's future here is, if he'll want to stay beyond this, but if you create a situation where it's like, okay, that's palatable, then you at least have people on that staff that you trust and you work well with. And it's funny because I see people talking about his loyalty to Whitt. Like typically coaches like coaches who they feel are good, and Witt was good for him in a different role in Dallas. So if you can keep him, if you get him back into that role, maybe it's just more comfortable for him and the staff overall. So that's, we'll see what happens. But again, like after the season, I think you'll see like where does it go? How does he feel about the process? Did he feel like anything else was shortchanged because he was spending time doing this? That's going to be a key too. And then that's where you rely a little bit more on some of your guys on your offensive staff as well. And the good thing for them is you have two guys in your offensive staff who were head coaches in Kingsbury and then Anthony Lynn. So that helps as well. And you have a guy in Brian Johnson who was an OC. So you have guys who have been in different roles and elevated roles that I think also can make the process go smoothly if you want to continue in that function. So anyways, something to consider. I think that's a good thing. Commanders fans, your fandom just got an upgrade. Introducing the AAA Commanders MVP membership, where real fans get real perks and the same trusted AAA membership benefits. The new AAA Commanders membership provides the chance to win game tickets, access to VIP events and experiences, 15% off at the Commanders Online Pro Shop, while providing peace of mind for Commanders fans on the road. Already a AAA member? Don't sit on the sideline. Upgrade your membership or join today at AAA.com/Commanders. All right, so now another thought here is on the succession plan as quarterbacks coach. And this is one thing we talked about. I did a little video for ESPN, did it over here for one of the shorts, that the natural move is to elevate David Blough from assistant to quarterbacks coach. Now, this is just for the rest of the regular season. Then you've got to go through the process of the hiring process and satisfy rules, whatever, to then name somebody. But it would make a lot of sense just to have Blough continue, because why wouldn't you? He was the assistant. They're here for a reason. You elevate him. That's what eventually should happen, assuming all goes well. But also the other thing to watch for me would be, does Cliff Kingsbury look for something elsewhere as a head coach after the season? Does he have opportunities? If so, does he try to take David Blough, because he's the reason that Blough is here? So I think that'll be something to watch, but I think it's why you need to elevate that guy, keep him here, keep him in your system, and keep some level of continuity for the quarterbacks, obviously Jayden Daniels. The one thing I'll say, and like you talk to a lot of people, you observe it, but you also hear from other people outside the building about what their people are telling them too, and what you're hearing. This is a very tight offensive staff, and it's a very tight quarterbacks room. So I think the more continuity you can have there, the better off you are. I think it just works well. They work well together, the entire group. It's why, like I've told you every Friday, one of the things with Blough, I don't know what kind of quarterbacks coach he's going to make. What I do know is that he has a good rapport with Jayden Daniels. They are very competitive guys. They love talking trash to one another. It's what they both enjoy doing. Every Friday you watching them, like every Friday, like the quarterbacks and the coaches, like Brian Johnson, it was Tavita, who's now done, Tavita, and then Blough, and I can't remember. And then all the quarterbacks, they'll sit there and throw, it's just a little game. You put a yellow trash can in the corner of the end zone, and you're just trying to throw footballs into there. And that's what they do. They play those little games, but it's something fun that they all enjoy. And then at the end of that, Blough and Jayden would play a game of horse with throwing a football into the net. If you've ever seen the picture of the football net that has like 3 squares in it, and they do that. So it's their version of quarterback horse. But but the point is that, like, that doesn't make him a great coach. It just means the rapport is there. And I think one of the things too, I think this staff works in a very similar way. And I think when you have a quarterback like Daniels, you need to work a certain way because he is going to work that way. And you've got to match what he does. Kingsbury does it. These other guys do it. So I think that's a good thing. So anyways, Blough is going to do that. Brian Johnson's also going to help out more with the quarterbacks. Now, he's obviously the pass game coordinator. He has experience coaching quarterbacks. So he'll provide a little bit more help there to get through the season. And then after the season, I think then again, reevaluate, is Blough going to be that guy permanently? And then who becomes the assistant quarterbacks coach? That's for after the season. But it is, you did watch, like, losing Tavita. Like, Tavita was a solid coach here, and somebody that they liked and respected. And you could tell that it was very difficult for him to leave. Like after the game Sunday night, You can see him. We're in the locker room. And when you're in the locker room, there's like a little hallway outside the locker room. And then on the other side, it's a very small hallway, is the coach's locker room. And you could see Tavita in there kind of giving some guys hugs goodbye, saw him with Adam Peters. But you could see even from a distance, like some red puffiness to his eyes. Like this was not an easy thing for him to leave. Like guys like being here. And it's funny how many guys I talk to, when you're done talking to them, like they'll just stop, you just stop talking. It's like, hey, it's going to turn around here. Like the confidence level they have in what Quinn has built and what they are part of is there. And it's not just one person who says that. Now, will they do it? I don't know. I'm just telling you the confidence they have and the belief they have. And I think there's a tightness with that, which is why I think it was hard for Pritchard to say goodbye. A couple of us had a chance to talk to him a little bit too. But you could see the emotion on his face. And that's, that speaks to what it meant for him to be here. But listen, man, it's a pretty good opportunity to go back to your alma mater, and his family's ecstatic. He's a West Coast guy, and good for him. So anyway, there you go. By the way, and I don't know what's going to happen with the Penn State job. I do know that Penn State had talked to Commanders receivers coach Bobby Ingram, who obviously is an alum of Penn State. But as I'm taping this, it sounds like the BYU coach is the guy that is high on the radar. Don't know what happens there, but I do know they had talked to Ingram. So it's another guy that teams were looking at. Haven't heard about anybody else, but that's what I know there. All right, number 3, this is about Jayden Daniels' health. And I think they're going to continue to be very, very cautious. I don't know yet what that means for Sunday against Minnesota. Now that, again, we know that was a possibility of him coming back for this game. And it was the first real target date that you'd hear. What that means yet, don't know, because even Quinn said first of all, he hasn't been cleared for contact yet. They want to make sure there's the ability to basically have functional contact. So in other words, the kind of contact you're going to get at quarterback, not just like, get hit and, how does your arm feel? It's more like, can you stiff arm a guy and do it properly? Like that's a big thing too for them. Like the movements of a quarterback, like what would you use in a game? Like those are the things they need to test them on. So they've tested them on some of those. And by test, I mean like watching and kind of putting them through some stuff without overextending it, kind of gradually building up to, okay, let's see this. Quinn said that he's been pretty good with it so far. Liked how he's throwing the ball today. He said he ripped a few. But then later in the week, I think they'll see a little bit more, and maybe during practice, maybe off to the side with the coaches or trainers, and just to see where he's at. So it's probably not going to be till Friday till we have a really good feel for it, how he gets through the week, and then how it feels. One thing I will say, like last week, even last 2 weeks, or last week in practice, what you would see is them kind of pulling him out, like you'd have going through individual drills, but they'd pull him out and have him go run through a series of plays on his own or a series of movements on his own, just to see where things are at. But also it looked like they were working on some things just to kind of get him back in the flow, but they would pull him out and just give him some more individual attention instead of having him just working some drills. But he would do some more functional movements for sure. So that's where they're at with that. No guarantee that he plays Sunday. He will come back. Like whether it's this week or the next week, he's coming back. So because they definitely want to see him, and they definitely believe there's a major benefit to him coming back and playing again this season. So just a matter of when. Hail Nation, take your fandom up a notch. Check out the new AAA Commanders MVP membership. You'll get all the reliable AAA benefits like 24/7 roadside assistance, plus exciting Hail Nation extras like opportunities to win game tickets, attend exclusive events, and 15% off the online pro shop. Already a AAA member? No problem. You can upgrade for free. Head to AAA.com/Commanders to upgrade or join today and become a true Commanders MVP and Hail Nation member. Another thought, Terry McLaurin has kind of an impact on the field. There's been so much, not drama, but emotion around McLaurin this year. The emotion from the fans, from himself, from everybody with the hold out, hold in, then a slow start, then you get hurt, then then you come back, but then you get hurt again, and then you're out again, and all that stuff. Like it was just different for him, but it was nice to be reminded that, hey, the guy's pretty good. And when you can have whatever play designs you want, but if you don't have some dudes out there who can run certain plays, it's going to be difficult. And when you watch McLaurin going up against like, 7 for 96 the other night, one touchdown, when you watch him against like Patrick Surtain, like they don't really have anybody else who could compete against a Surtain and feel like, okay, you could win this route. They weren't afraid to go to Terry with Surtain on him. And now of the 7 catches, 2 were against him in press man. The other 5 were in some sort of zone, were against various zone coverages, sometimes on Surtain's side, but not necessarily like a man-to-man coverage. But there were other times where they clearly went up against one another, and McLaurin was pretty good against him. Again, those are the only 2 catches, but there are other times where, like, if Mariota had opted to, that you had a chance with him, whereas others against Surtain, you're not really going to have a chance. So, like, that's the difference here. When you get a guy that can beat a guy who is the top NFL corner, and a guy who feels confident going up there because, like, hey, that's Patrick Surtain, but I'm Terry McLaurin. Like, that's how he thinks. Now, is he the top receiver in the NFL? No. But is he a very good receiver in the NFL? Well, yeah. That's why he got another got the contract extension. But you saw that, and I think that's something that was obviously evident the other night, and just there's just the ability to win at the line of scrimmage on the slant, for example. Like that's what he got 11 yards on a slant against Surtain, but it's because of the quick, aggressive movements that he has, and he's just more sudden than anybody else they have off the line, and that is a big difference. And you saw that multiple times throughout the game where you felt that, right? And there was an example, and I was going to talk about Trey Burks in a minute, but I'll just kind of talk about this here. When you watch like Burks run a comeback route versus McLaurin, and there's a difference how they come out of that, right? And how they break. And sometimes maybe there's some different things they're being asked to do. So this might be out of ignorance, but I'm watching McLaurin run a comeback against the Raiders earlier this year, and just like his ability to sit down, turn, and get back for the ball. Like you get the defensive back convinced that you're going to be running by him, then boom, you sit down, turn, back for the ball. So you create a few yards of separation with the ability to sell that go route, and then you maintain that separation by sitting, coming back. Whereas I watch Burks, and he doesn't quite have that level of ability that McLaurin has. Can he get there? I don't know, because McLaurin's really good with that, right? So, but can he improve there? Sure. But there's a couple of times where like you watch him, he's a little bit bigger, right? He's a couple inches bigger, so it can be a little bit harder to sit, come back out of your break. And, that's something that you notice, like it may take him a few more steps to sit and turn and come back. And by then, maybe you lose some of the advantage you have. The good thing for Burks is that he can make those contested catches. So I think that's something to be watched going forward. I think that's what is going to be a strength, is maybe not getting that separation all the time, but making those contested catches. But anyways, with McLaurin, let's stick there for right now. But it is funny that, there were a couple of drives, and I'll get to some of this later in the podcast, where it's like you just know that you're looking for McLaurin or you're looking for Zach Ertz, the guys that you trust in certain situations, in clutch situations. McLaurin had 4 of his catches were in the fourth quarter or overtime. That's not by coincidence, right? Like, who are you going to look for at those times? It's 3rd and 25, you're going to McLaurin. 4th and 3, you're going to McLaurin. And they trust him there. And that's the difference of who would you, if he's not there, who are you going to in those situations where you say, okay, I trust that this guy's going to make that play. I trust in this tense, tough situation, he's going to be able to come down with the ball. So like that's the difference. And when you get that guy back, it kind of makes a difference. And, I know like there's a lot of other issues, but that's why I always laughed when people like just ripping on the play calling, whatever, like you still need dudes to do it, right? You need dudes. And if you don't have a dude, then you're not going to really, then whatever you do is like, it's going to be laborious. And I think the other key here is they converted so much on 3rd down. But anyways, I thought McLaurin was obviously very impactful. And the other thing is too, I mentioned the comeback. Like there was one where he falls, like the sod was not good. It was slippery. And so like there's one time where he runs a comeback, he slips and falls against Surtain, still gets up and comes back for the ball and makes a 16-yard catch. Like that's how the separation he got on that, to do that, and he skips to the ground and bounces back up and catches the ball. Like, honestly, I'm a little surprised somebody didn't hurt their knee with the way that turf was the other night. And like looking at McLaurin, like, or hurt their knee, or maybe get some other another soft tissue injury, because like that's the way that his legs kind of splayed. It's like, oh, that could have done some damage somewhere. And I watched one time Josh Connolly with an issue where like his leg just kind of bent funny, like that could have been something worse. Or maybe it's just like a tear or something, not tear, but maybe some sort of soft tissue injury, but it wasn't conducive. It was conducive to that, right? I'm surprised that nobody had that. But anyway, that's the separation that McLaurin was able to get on some of those plays where he could slip and still bounce back up and come back and make the catch, and it worked for him. So the other thing too is the impact that he had on others. And so after the game, I talked about like Ertz had 10 for a buck six, right? On 106 yards. And you're like, okay, when he was talking about how McLaurin opened up the middle opens up the middle for him. And he's right. He definitely opens up stuff for other people. But funny thing is with Ertz, 8 of his catches were with Terry on the sidelines. So there are only 2 catches with him in the game. And one of them, both of them were around McLaurin, but the one in particular seemed like it was more I don't know about a direct result, but it was one where they basically both McLaurin runs a shallow crosser, and takes the attention of 2 linebackers with him, and then Ertz is kind of sneaking behind that, and the defensive back passes him off, but he's open, and part of it is because I think the attention paid to McLaurin underneath. That's where you get that guy sneaking behind, where you can get a play, and Ertz made the catch for that one too. So that was one, and then there was another one, the one to Colson Yankoff, and I'm putting up some screenshots here that where attention paid to McLaurin allows somebody else to sneak in kind of from a different angle or different side to get to an open area. Now, maybe he gets there without the attention paid to McLaurin, but there is definitely a wariness when McLaurin's in that area that will allow others to then benefit. And this is one with Yankoff. And it's funny because I know people want to see Ben Sinnott doing stuff, and I'm going to get to this in a minute, but Yankoff is a guy that I'd like to see. I'm curious to see what he can do as a receiver because he's pretty athletic. And so I think he's a guy that I'm curious, like, what can he do after the catch? What kind of role could he play moving forward? Because again, he is a fairly athletic guy. So anyway, but I thought like that was a play where I felt like McLaurin impacted that for sure. And then, so now on Trey Burke. So I think that like obviously they're excited about him. I think there's reason to feel good about him. Now, what level can he get to? I don't know. I know, my understanding is like, Jayden is someone who I think likes to work with him or is anxious, or not anxious is the wrong word, but wants to work with him, right? And because I think he sees something in him and others see something in him. Now, when you're watching, it's not like he's just like blowing people away out there, right? I mean, I think there's also something, and I talked about the change of scenery thing the other day, be with like Emmanuel Forbes and then with Burks. Funny thing is like Forbes did not have a very good game Sunday. Kind of got torched a couple of times, but he has played better. And if you reach that level of confidence that you have that, then you can rebound from those kind of games. But anyways, with Burks, they definitely talk about that. And I think the other thing is too, when you're first round pick, there's just a different level of pressure with it. And you get cut or you get moved to, teams move away from you. There's a different level of expectation with that new team. Like, yeah, they want to see what you can do, but it's all gravy if you do something, right? It's like, hey, you draft a guy with 16th pick or whatever, you need him to develop into a starter. But if you pick a guy who had been picked somewhere else like that, it's like you're hoping you can get that talent back or the talent emerges for you and you get something more out of him. So if Burks emerges here as a 3rd or 4th guy, that's really good for them. Like I'd still say you get McLaurin. I'd want to go get another receiver in the offseason who can be a strong number 2. Whether or not they keep Debo, that will be dependent to me upon money, as it usually is. But I'd still want to go get another guy. But then if Burks, again, is your 3rd or 4th guy, that you're probably in a good spot. Whereas in Tennessee, he needed to be the main guy because that's what you drafted him for. Here, be a guy that can help you, and I think he has shown he can do that. So, only 1 catch for 5 yards the other night. Hell of a catch. Best catch we've seen this year, especially given the circumstances in a touchdown. But I do think as this goes forward, if he can be a guy who gets a few catches a game for you, creates some openings for others or just helps out like that, that's a good thing. So just in watching him, it's not like he creates a lot of separation. That's just, I don't think that's going to be what he does. I think he can get better as a route runner, selling some things, but I don't think he's ever going to be that guy like with McLaurin, who's just really precise on a lot of things, and that's why he's made himself into such a good receiver. But I think Burks will be a guy that he can use. I think here's what I would say. I'll be curious to see where the trust level gets to with like Jayden as they get in there to work together. That's one of the reasons I'd like to see the last few weeks. How do those two develop? Can you start to develop some level of synergy and a trust? Because that's really what you want to do. Like if you're going to throw that ball to this guy in this situation, you have to trust that he has a chance to come down with it. Or like, for example, you have to learn, when can you trust them? Like with Noah Brown or with, I think McLaurin got to a point where he felt that he knew when he could trust them. If nothing else, maybe draw a PI. With Burks, you've got to learn that, right? And that's an important thing to learn going forward, because if he can stay healthy and contribute here, that could be a decent pairing for, like I said, the role I said. But you have to develop that. It just doesn't happen because he's here now, so let's go. You've got to develop that. And I think that's something that I'd like to see. Where does it get to, and what happens when you do trust? Like, when you trust, is it tight window throws that you can get it to him in these situations? Yeah, that's what you want to learn. And I think that's what we want. That's what I want to see moving forward out of that group, because there are times, like I said, Burks is not going to create a ton of separation. That's just not what he's done in the games that I've watched him here, but he does make tough contested catches. If you're a third or fourth guy, beautiful, right? He's not going to be explosive. He's not sudden, but he can make those catches. Like if anybody who, I'm not saying he's Anquan Bolden, but that's when Anquan Bolden, for those of you remember, he made those kind of catches as he developed, as he got older in his career, lost some things, but he could make those catches, and there's a lot of value in that. So can he become that guy here for them? Possibly. We'll see. But that's, I think, like I said, it's just there's a difference there. But can you develop that trust? And then what does it look like when you get there? What level can you get to? All that stuff. But he's a guy that I think he's been a good pickup, because I think and they've talked about the hunger. I think he fits in well with what they want to build here, the kind of players they want to bring in, the way the guys work. So, just working hard doesn't guarantee anything. I think, and Logan Paulson told me this one time about Jayden. He's like, working the way he does not guarantee you're going to be great, but you can't be great if you don't work that way. If you bring guys who work that way, you give yourself a better chance to maximize who they are as players and what they can be. And Burks is a big dude. He's got good size, so you can maximize that as you move forward. But and he's just started here. There are some times too where I'm watching it, where there are a couple times where he and Jalen Lane were kind of in the same area. So they're still getting used to what are you supposed to be doing, it looks like, in the routes on certain plays, because that those two shouldn't be there together, right? It's not conducive to spreading the field and creating, you don't want one guy being able to cover two, right? If you're a basketball coach, that in the zone, you don't want, make it hard to cover both those guys. So anyways, that's part of what is going on too. And what I talked to him before, but I'd be curious, what level are you running your routes at? How comfortable are you with this? And are you running it without thinking at this point? I know there's routes, there's different ways teams get to run their routes, etc. But so I think all that's why, it's good month for him. See where it goes from there. So anyways, thought the offensive line was really good. Watched a lot of Josh Conerly the other night, and I continue to think that the young man is improving, as you would expect. And you can just see, and he talked to me about the other day about having more confidence, and you can see it in his performance. The base is better. I think as he said, he kind of got back to who he was as a blocker. And when he was at Oregon, very big on mechanics and being technically sound, because he didn't feel like he could overwhelm guys with his athleticism or with his size or whatever. So you had to be technically sound. I think he's kind of getting back to that, because you see, early in the year, you did not see the consistent base that I'm seeing now in a lot of pass sets, and it's why he's at now. I know he had the holding penalty, and I also think I think it was against Cooper, but I think he also slipped on that play, which probably made it a lot worse. But bottom line is that was the one play, and in most of the plays I've seen, I wasn't able to watch every play, but I do see more consistency with him for sure. And there's an awareness too. There was one run, a run by Rodriguez early in the game, the 11-yard run where he gets in the middle, bounces out. Part of why he was able to get out of there is because like Conerly starts to block down, then you feel like there are a couple guys coming from the backside. He turns around and is able to get Cooper. That by doing that, it prevented Cooper from tackling Rodriguez. Would have been probably a 1 yard loss. Instead, he bounces out and gets 11 yards. So there's good awareness there too. But anyways, just thought that was good by that group. I'm not talking a lot about the defense today because I just didn't watch enough of it to really talk about anything with that. But I did want to go over a drive of the game, and it's the last one. It was the one that forced overtime. Now, I could look at from a negative view of some of the Broncos drives right before halftime. I thought that was a bad drive for the defense. You had a chance to get in the locker room with the lead, you blew it. You had a chance to hold them to the field goal, you blew it. So like that's the stuff that I think, but again, like it's not, right now, it's not a highly talented defense, but they do have guys who can still make plays, and actually in that play that was touchdown, it was Bo Nix made a play to get that touchdown, which helped too. But in the one that but again, that was a bad one. But the one I'm looking at too for Washington is the drive at the end of regulation because of all the stuff they had to go through. They had a 4th and 1, they converted with a 2-yard McNichols run. They had a 1st and 10, and this is what I talked about earlier. Terry McLaurin gets called for a false start. Folks, I watched the play 10 times. There's no false start. He jogs out to his place like the first I thought, well, did they think he was not set? But he was set for I counted 1,001. He's set. Ball snapped. They all go. I don't know where they got false start. I don't know where. Like it's a phantom false start to me. Bad call. And I'm not being a homer by saying that. It was just a bad call by the officials. Puts them at a 1st and 15. Then they get the intentional grounding, which Terry McCauley, former official, said was a bad call because he overthrew McLaurin on that one, but McLaurin was outside the numbers. He said, which should have mitigated the Mariota not being outside the numbers. So whatever, like it left them at 1st and 20 or 2nd and 25. And then they get 3rd and 25, and you get the 19-yarder to McLaurin. So now it's 4th and 6. Then you convert with the pass to Zach Ertz. So just a number of big plays and being put in bad situations against arguably the NFL's top defense, and they kept coming through in that situation. They earned it tied up on Jake Moody's 32-yard field goal. So I think that was a really good drive. It said a lot about them, where they're at, and the confidence they were playing with the other night. And that's a huge deal. It's why I want to see Daniels back playing with this group to see what they can do. And there you go. But that was the AAA drive of the game. So the last thing I want to talk about is something that I know a lot of people want to talk about, which is when are they going to play more of the young players? And that's something Dan Quinn was asked about today. Like, what's that line you cross? Like wanting to win with the vets, but wanting to develop some of the young guys. And he said that is a needle they're trying to thread. But he also points to you still have to create winning habits. You still are about standards and fundamentals, et cetera. So if you're not reaching those habits or reaching those standards, then you're probably not going to play a lot or get the time you want. Nobody has just deserved playing time because, oh, they're a young player. See what you got. Like, that's not how it works. You still have to do the things necessary to warrant more time, not just to bump a veteran out, but to warrant more time for yourself. Because if you're trying to create a situation where, okay, if you see player X is not doing something or not at a certain level, and you reward him by playing, you're sending the wrong message. So if you have the staff is coming back, like you need to still have guys adhere to a certain level to get them out there. Now, some of so that's part of it. And I know like there will be a point where like, okay, are there some other guys you can give some opportunities to? Whether it could be a Colson Yankoff. Everybody's calling for Sinnott. Maybe it's Yankoff who gets more chances as a pass catcher. He's a young guy too. So, and if he warrants that, then that's what you should get. Like if he warrants it more than Sinnott, and I'm not saying that he does, I'm just saying, for example, if he's showing things that in practice that Sinnott isn't, why would you give it to Sinnott? Give it to this guy. Right? Because that's if that's the guy who's showing more. And I'm not saying that he is, but it's just as an example of possibly why they might look a certain way. But you still want guys to earn it, because if you're trying to have standards, like that's how you get there. Now, the one thing that you could see, I wonder down the road is like, all right, if Jordan McGee is your future Mike, maybe you want to get him some action there too, and just see what does it look like with him there. And that, right now they're using a lot of 3 linebacker sets, so you're not doing that. But what if you go to some 2 backer sets and you use him in that role to see, like, is he that guy? Now, the other thing to keep in mind, like, they know who these guys are. Just because maybe we don't see them in games, they see them in practice. They're in meetings with them. They're doing walkthroughs with them. They know what these guys know and are capable of for the most part, right? Like, I'm not a big, it doesn't mean that, he could just be a gamer. Like, maybe that not very often does that happen. But you still have to, if you're showing this and this, if you're working this way or not working this way or that way, then you shouldn't, you need to get what you've earned, even if it's young, even if there's a veteran in front of you, like, you still need to do that, because you still want to, like, if that guy wants to get something next year, then you got to show him, like, hey, if you want this next year, you still got to do this. You're not just getting it because you're 23 years old or 24 years old. You're getting it because we've seen something in you. You've shown this, you're doing better here. You're doing better there. Now you get more playing time. I think that to me is a way to build a more winning foundation. And I think that's what they believe as well. Maybe you disagree with that. And listen, they are playing a lot of young guys. And I think I would think you'll see some more down the stretch. But if not, then I think you have to keep a lot of things in mind. Ask yourself, not so much like, why aren't they doing this? Like, why isn't he able to get more time? There's usually a reason why. Sometimes if it's just because, hey, I like this guy better, like, well, maybe that's not the best reason. But if it's like, hey, we still need to see this and this from him in practice or meetings or whatever to get that time out there, then I think that's what you want, because that becomes standards and sets a higher bar for what you want to achieve. And I think it creates a better situation down the road. Anyway, that's it for me, folks. I'm starting to ramble. I'm getting hungry. I got to go eat dinner. Appreciate you tuning in. As always, we'll be back on Tuesday night with Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Commanders, at 7:30 Eastern time. Join me there. Join us there. Bring your questions, bring your concerns, bring your thoughts. Whatever you want to do, bring it. We'll talk to you then. Talk to you next time.